Adam and Karissa King. Thank y'all for being here. I have to say really quick, y'all are actually one of our most popular podcast episodes ever. So It is an honor to have you back. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Bethany. It's an honor to be on your podcast. We love Girl Defined. We love your books. We've done so many Bible studies with girl groups on your books, and we just love everything that you and Kristen do. So thank you so much for having us on again.
Absolutely. So if you're wondering what episode that was, like, okay, what's so popular? You're going to know why. It is the episode called How to Prepare for Sex on Your Honeymoon. And Adam and Karissa, I love it because you both, like, you don't shy away from anything. Obviously on your podcast, you know, and your whole website, Dear Young Married Couple, y'all are willing to talk about everything and the questions people actually want to know. So today, as we talk about premarital counseling and just preparing for marriage as like a newly engaged couple, I have some spicy questions for y'all, so you better be prepared. But before we jump in, just give everyone really quick, like, I talk about Dear Young Married Couple all the time, but just tell us why you started it, you know, why you created this premarital course, this, you know, preparation, Prequipped. Just give us a little bit of rundown of who you are and what you do.
Sure. We created Dear Young Married Couple just because we saw a need to equip couples with tools and kind of to meld the science and theology together in a way that actually works. And so, and we just saw that need and wanted to kind of fill that gap. And it wasn't something that we like really looked for. It just kind of, God, I think, just brought this to pass. And we absolutely are so honored to be doing this and partnering with God and all of the people that we work with.
And people like you.
Yes. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, y'all have something for everyone. Dave and I have worked through your sexpectation card deck, which is amazing. You know, like all the questions about sex, and they're like, especially, I've recommended it so many times because people are like, I feel awkward, I don't know what to ask, and it's like, here, we ask all the questions for you, so you don't even have to, you know, be embarrassed. So they like go to their website, Dear Young Married Couple, because they have everything. Obviously, your podcast, I recommend all the time. Aww. But what I want to talk about today, so I have a sister that just got engaged, and she is she's going to get married in 4 months, so it's a pretty quick engagement, which I love.
Yep.
And one of the questions we were talking about, literally, we got together shortly, like, you know, literally a couple days ago, and she was like, okay, so, you know, we've been really careful not to talk about like sex and intimacy for like the wedding night or the honeymoon, but she's like, I feel like we need to at some point like talk about that, but how do we talk about sex? When should we talk about sex? When should we talk about sex? Is this a conversation like my fiance and I should be having? So I want to know from you, say a couple's engaged and they're feeling like unsure about how to prepare for intimacy, unsure of how to communicate about sex. Can you just give us some insight on when, if, what that conversation should look like?
Yes, absolutely. So this is actually an entire week in our 7-week course. So the answer is yes, up front. You need to be talking about sex and intimacy when you're preparing for marriage. But there are specific ways to do that and guardrails to put in place to make sure that you're having you're preparing for your covenant relationship. And so this is a beautiful thing. Sex is a beautiful gift, and we don't want to shy away from talking about it. So you talked about the Sexpectations deck. We actually number the specific cards that are appropriate for premarital couples to talk about in the Prequipped course. We also have an entire section in there on how to talk about your sexual history. So when couples have a sexual history, we give them a list of questions because we don't want to like clutter our, partner's mind with all the like who, where, when, what positions, like we don't, that's unnecessary and unhelpful and can be traumatizing to your partner. But we do ask a lot of the questions you need to be asking that have to do with, what did you learn about yourself and what made you actually stop that relationship? What are some of the things that transitioned you into a season where you were walking in God's plan for you around sexuality? And so we have that entire PDF of a list of questions for you to ask each other about sexual history.
So from a Adam, from a guy's perspective, because I know I've obviously Girl Define, we talk to a lot of women. And so they're probably listening and thinking, okay, I might get this course pre-equipped for me and my, guy to go through together. And what I've come across, at least in the Girl Define sisterhood and just in other women that I talk to that are engaged, is I feel like preparing for intimacy seems, at least a lot of women feel maybe more unsure, insecure. Yeah. It just seems complicated. And I know even in my own experience, Dave and I, he was like, let's go. I'm ready. I'm feeling confident. And I was like, I'm not sure I know how everything works, So yeah. I know that's how women can feel. So how, from a man's perspective, how can a girl go about approaching her guy in a way that doesn't lead to temptation? You know what I mean? Just how can she approach him and begin that conversation, and what would be too much? I know you talk about that in Pre-Equipped, but can you give us something right now?
Yes. Well, first of all, let me back up a little bit. There is a stigma, I think, around sexuality within the church.
Yeah.
And we have avoided it for a long time for fear of some of these fears of like, oh, if we talk about it, we're going to go too far and it's all going to fall apart and we're going to have sex before marriage and that's not a good thing. And so for some of these fears, we've absolutely stayed away from talking about it at all. Yeah. So it's been this no, don't even get close. Don't say the word sex. Don't say the word or any of your anatomical parts. Use weird names for them. Like,
it's true.
And then all of a sudden we open the door of the hotel room and it's a go. And the woman's like, oh snap. Yeah. I'm here and I don't really know how this is supposed to go. I don't even know how I'm supposed to feel right now. I don't even. Yeah. And we've heard this from a lot of couples, and this is why we created Pre-Equipped, to actually curate a conversation around sexuality that is helpful, that embraces that a woman is a sexual being.
Yeah.
And for a lot of them, they've closed that off, and we're almost in the friend zone, and then we're, oh yeah, that's right, I'm a sexual being. And so what we try to do is curate the conversation in a safe way, in a safe place, to say, okay, what do I need to know? What do we need to prepare for? Because there are a lot of worries around this. And so I find I did a session yesterday with a premarital couple, on this very subject. And we gave them the first night checklist, and we talked through, this is what to expect, this is what you should prepare for, make sure you do this and this and this, and they walk out of there going, I'm looking forward to this. This is not as scary as some people make it. And so we try to bring some reality to it and give some, like Chris has said, some handrails to guide the conversation, to give some healthy expectations and what they should aim for. So like, for instance, what they should aim for. We shouldn't aim for a destination for the first night. Let's just use the first night. I think we've talked about this a little bit. But like, we shouldn't aim for a destination. This is a journey of exploration, of vulnerability, and getting to know someone. And so if we take that expectation of this needs to happen off the table, and we could just say, let's just get to know each other. Let's just start by taking off each other's clothes slowly and loving each other and being grateful and full of thankfulness for what God has gifted you in this beautiful moment. So many things can go so much better.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Now, you mentioned the wedding night checklist. Everyone is like, what is that? Where do I get that? What are you talking about? Yes. So what is that?
That is a free download that they can grab today. We'll give you the link so you can put it in the show notes. But it's just a first night checklist. It's a 1-page deal that gives you practical stuff. Like, for instance, most women don't know that they need to urinate after having sex.
This took a while for us to figure out.
That's just something people don't tell you in premarital counseling usually.
Yes.
And so that's, you need to know that. And that's on the first night checklist. Like, don't just lay there in bed, get up and urinate, or you're going to get a UTI.
Which is no fun.
Right. So just some practical things like that. And fun things like make sure to pack a Bluetooth speaker so you can play your fun music and make a playlist ahead of time. And
explore the 5 senses. Try to bring all of them in at once.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, this is awesome. I wish, I didn't get married that long ago, 3.5 years ago. And I felt when Dave and I got married, I felt like we were much more prepared than like a lot of our friends had been, because they gave us all the info. You know, I didn't get married until I was 30, so they're like, here's everything you need to know. But even now, I'm like, there were so much more I didn't know, which is fine. It's just a starting point. But I love that you are helping couples to be equipped. And I know your entire course, Pre-Equipped, is not just about intimacy, sexual intimacy, but like spiritual intimacy and working through, you know, the past, working through just differences, like growing closer to Christ. What would you say within your course, Pre-Equipped, is, I don't know, like one of the, outside of the week on sex, another week or session that you feel is like a must, like this one is just so crucial for, you know, engaged couples to talk through?
So my favorite,
Okay, what is it?
are you going to say, maybe you're going to say something different than mine? Well, kind of, you made me think of it when you talked about like spiritual intimacy, but my favorite is that we guide them through how to write a marriage mission statement. So that's how they close out the course, is what are our values? What is God calling us to do as a couple? And what is our marriage mission statement going to be that guides us, that's a tenet for us, and is a foundation for us as a newly married couple. And that, to me, is like the most empowering part of the whole course.
Okay, so for me then, I like that part. That's a good one. My favorite part is probably either the communication or the conflict resolution sections, because we still use those things. And okay, let me back up, because we have so many like threads going here. Let's be clear. Like, we've been married, almost 14 years, and we were not pre-equipped. Like, we had one session. It was pretty much like, do you love each other? Okay. You guys should be good then.
Really?
Like, you both grew up in good homes. You know, like, you love each other. Remember, you're not actually married until you consummate the marriage. Like, you know, just like kind of little things like that. We're like, okay, cool. Like,
yeah.
Great.
But we had shut down. We had a lot of shutdown around sexuality.
Yeah.
That became an issue for us right away. We had difficulty communicating because Karissa is very hard-headed.
And you're not at all, babe. Not at all.
You see that little bit of blame? Yeah, full disclosure. Adam is hard-headed as well. And so we had so many preconceived notions, and we had we did not have the talk. Well, I had the talk once, and that was it. I did not have a place that I can go to ask questions.
And I grew up with a lot more talks, plural, like around sex and sexuality. But it still was, we had this clashing of our attitude around sex growing up that caused conflict.
Right. Well, she didn't know how to ask what she needed for what she needed. And I didn't know how to ask for that. So there were so many things that we weren't prepared for going in. And so if we would have had some simple tools, and this is, and it probably sounds like everybody like we're pushing Pre-Equipped. Yes, we are. I'm sorry.
That's why we made it for you.
At the same time, it's because like we wish we would have had this tool now, being counselors and having seen thousands and thousands of people in our office, and, you know, working with them in seminars and everything else that we do. It would have been so helpful to say, okay, use this wish list tool when you have something you need to ask them. And if you don't feel understood, use the because tool. And if you guys are getting flooded and you have lots of, lots of like hormones, like take a breather. And if this happens, use this. And this is common to every single marriage. Every single marriage is going to have difficulty. Like we like to say, why is Pre-Equipped important? Well, every single marriage goes into marriage thinking that this marriage is going to last.
Yes.
Or they never would get married.
Yeah.
That's true.
Why would I get married if I thought this was the one that's going to fail, but the next marriage is going to work? Right? Like, no, like we don't go into that, but a lot of people have failing marriages.
Yeah.
And I think a large part of that is they haven't had sufficient grounding in what to expect and the tools needed to help them figure out their differences. Because one of the most beautiful things that God did was create a full-size mirror for you called your spouse. And sometimes what we see in that mirror is not what we like.
It's true.
So and that is the sanctification process that God has created.
Amen. Yeah. And I mean, the numbers don't lie. Like, you know, the divorce rate is hovering around 50%. It's
Yeah.
gone down by like 1% or 2.
Well,
in the
just
last
because
year.
people aren't getting married.
People aren't getting
Yeah,
married.
I
So
know, it's true.
yeah, but you know, you can reduce your chances of divorce by 31%.
Say that again.
31% by getting premarital counseling or
That's
engaging
amazing.
in a premarital course. And so if you can do that, you can take your chances of divorce from 50% down to 20% simply by getting premarital counseling. Why not? I mean, like the state of Texas, you're in Texas. The state of Texas recognizes this.
Texas
So
is awesome.
They actually, your marriage license is like $60. Okay. Well, you can actually take that down to $0 by doing a premarital course.
There you go.
No way.
$60 back.
Yeah. So like
That's crazy.
you download your certificate of completion from the course, you submit it with your marriage license application, and you don't pay a dime. And there's, I think, 7
crazy.
states that offer a discount, but Texas actually gives it for free. They're
I had
all
no
conservative
idea.
states. Sadly, California does not offer that. Because
We're not fans of marriage
they
over here.
believe in marriage, right? They want you to
It's
stay
true,
married.
It's true.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I mean, Dave and I, we lost $60. Come on. That's amazing. And I love what that you said that, because we all know how much time and effort for most couples goes into the wedding and planning the wedding. I mean, I see my sister now working full speed, everything. She's just so excited. The venue, the dress, like everything is all consuming, which is so fun and which is so exciting.
Totally.
But it can be really hard to prioritize the counseling and the preparation, because I think it's exactly what y'all said, where you feel like, well, we're okay, or we're different. We're the ones that are going to be perfectly fine. And it's sad to me to see, because even now, like on my Instagram account, Dave and I have only been married 3.5 years, but we're both sinners. And so there are times where I feel frustrated, or we have definitely, I feel like I am the bigger sinner for sure. Like Dave is so patient and kind, and I'm like, good. Frazzled and stuff. And then we had, Davey Jr., our son, and I feel like that brought in a whole new level of sanctification. And what's sad to me is I will see single people or dating couples, when I talk about how, like, Dave and I had this, disagreement or this argument or whatever, people will literally message me or comment and say, like, if a marriage is a good, or if it's, meant to be, there shouldn't be conflict. There shouldn't be. That's a sign that you're actually not supposed to be together or whatever. And I have had so many single and dating couples say that. And I think there's like this disillusion, like everything should be easy. So can you talk to our, friends who are listening, who are either dating or engaged, or maybe even single, and they're thinking like, shouldn't it? Why would I need counseling? Like, if we're a fit, like, we should just get along. Can you speak to that a little bit?
We can.
Yes. So that's the whole myth of compatibility, right? If I find somebody that's perfectly compatible, then they're not going to want to change me. They're going to accept me exactly for who I am. I think the biblical model is, I think it was Tim Keller who said, like, I recognize what God is trying to do in you, and I'm going to partner with God to help you become the best version that God is trying to make you become.
I love that.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do as spouses. We're looking at our spouse and saying, I love you so much that I want to help you with patience, with love, with gentleness, with goodness, with respect, help you become everything that God wants you to become, and vice versa. And we have to learn to take that influence. But see, if we go into marriage thinking that we want to stay the same way, and our spouse is like, but hold on, I want to partner with Jesus.
Right.
It's just, but normally it's like, just leave me alone. I'm going to do my thing. You do your thing.
Yeah.
But then we're also one, but you're doing your thing. Like, that sounds like a conflict in and of itself.
Right.
And that's where we find a lot of couples is they don't want to hear the criticisms, or let's say they don't want to hear what your wife or your husband notices that they could get better at, because that's hard to hear what they could get better at if they're not in that frame of mind. Right? And if I can't accept influence, then we're just going to be in a space where it's going to be a lot of frustration.
Exactly. Yeah. And, the studies show it's not the number of arguments that determines your satisfaction in the marriage. It's how those arguments are handled. So we actually teach couples how to argue well. There's an entire unit on it. Like, here's how to argue the right way.
Yeah. We have literally had
love
people
that.
that tell us, like, we don't really argue in our marriage. And my wife and I just go, well, and we're thinking to ourselves, and we get down to it really quick. Somebody is avoiding issues. in order to keep the peace. Because, and remember, the argument is not necessarily, let's be clear, is not necessarily yelling.
Right.
Yeah.
Or screaming at each other. That's not arguing. Like, oh, it is arguing, but
that's fighting. It's immaturity.
Yeah, it's fighting. Yeah. But arguing is simply having different perspectives. And that's exactly what I would expect from someone that's raised in a completely different home, that has completely different values than me, that has completely different thought processes in their head than me.
Who's a completely different gender than you.
Yes.
Oh my word. That accounts for so much.
Yes.
It's true. I love that so much. And I want, everyone listening to not go into marriage naive thinking like, well, we'll be the one exception, and I love how y'all shared like the facts and the statistics, like, hey, by doing premarital counseling, literally it's like a 30% decrease, of your chances of, getting divorced. And I think that that's crucial. And so I guess as you have counseled couples who have not done premarital counseling, what kind of issues and conversations do you have with couples as the years go on that maybe could have been avoided or they could have been better prepared for if they had done premarital counseling?
Yeah. It reminds me of a few months back when we put out a sticker on Instagram and we said, what's your I wish I had premarital counseling story? And we had hundreds of responses.
So, the sticker on Instagram, she just kept flicking it up.
I was like,
no.
Like,
that's such a good question.
Yeah, and people, we chose like I think 5, 6, or 7 of our team put together this graphic and put it up that just this week actually because they're promoting the premarital counseling course and they like put up some of these responses and they were things like, my pastor said like the Holy Ghost will help us, so he doesn't really have much to say.
Wow,
so, like that was their premarital counseling. Or like, but you came from good homes, so you should be good to go. And so what we're dealing with 10 years down the road when people come to us is they don't know how to ask for what they want or need in the relationship.
That's called assertiveness.
They don't know how to listen well. They don't know how to solve arguments and be a team in their arguing.
So let me pull from that now. So that's what they don't have those things. Yeah. So then you have a need, okay? Needs don't just like poof go away.
Yeah.
Right? But when I have a need and it's not, and I can't ask for it, what Chris was saying, like I can't be assertive. What do we have to do with that need? Well, we have to kick it under the rug.
Yeah.
But the thing is they don't stay the same size under the rug. They kind of grow and they kind of get bigger. And then what happens after a while is I'm the man of the house. Like, why am I walking around this stinking huge thing and lump in the rug? Right. Like, this is my house, bless God. So I start to feel very controlled. My wife is so stinking controlling. She's always nagging me. She's always, my wife doesn't ever. But just joking.
These are the stories we hear, not real life examples from our home.
Never. We never give real life examples. But this is what happens. So if we don't have assertiveness, we don't have tools, we haven't been trained. And remember, these are skills. These are not personalities. These are skills that are trained, that we train in our office and in Pre-Equipped. So if they have assertiveness, we can work on the self-confidence. The self-confidence helps us to not avoid big issues that become big issues. And it helps us bring down the feelings of I'm feeling controlled. Because if I can't express, I start feeling controlled. And so that's what we really want to avoid, and that we do see a lot of at year 5, year 6, year 7.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
So with couples that get married, when do you typically see, because I know you counsel tons and tons of couples, which is amazing. And if you're listening and you're like, wow, I would love to work with them directly, you can go to their website, Dear Young Married Couple, and you can, y'all just have so many options. It's like the HubSpot. Like I'm like constantly tagging y'all on Instagram because there isn't anything else like you two, and I just love your team and everything you're doing. I'm such a fan, which reminds me, they did give us a discount code for their Pre-Equipped premarital course, y'all. So if you go to their website, dearyoungmarriedcouple.com, right? dearyoungmarriedcouple.com, you'll see it on there. You can go to all their resources. This is their course, their premarital course, Pre-Equipped, and the code is GirlDefined22, and that'll get you $50 off. It expires May 10th, so make sure to get it. I'll link all this below so you'll have all the details, but now is your chance to jump on this. I do want to know, so I have so many questions popping around in my mind, and I'm always telling Adam and Karissa, like, oh, it'll only be this long, and then I have so many things I want to ask, but This is something that, that Dave and I kind of ran into in the beginning of it really was in our engagement and early marriage. And I feel like we've come so far. I was, I knew we still do live in this world where like pornography is rampant. And I was exposed to it as a young girl because there was a magazine in our yard. And I write all about this in my book, Sex, Purity, and the Longings of a Girl's Heart. And then I knew people that had struggled with pornography addictions. God spared me in that department, but I was just so fearful that was going to be like a part of our relationship and tear it apart. And just like, I was struggling to like trust. I had been in a bad relationship before Dave. And so I just had like a lot of trust issues, and it came out like, it was just like, he's like, okay, like he didn't understand and I didn't know how to express. And so it was just hard. So for the couple, whether it's someone who has like fears of stuff that will become a part of their marriage, or fears because their parents maybe got divorced, or maybe there really is something that you're afraid to confess, like how can we approach those like fears that we have, maybe that we've never spoken before, without allowing the years to go on? And for me, it would be like Dave looking at me like, why is this always such a problem, and I haven't shared. So how do we approach those conversations?
That's excellent. Yeah. The answer, in short, is vulnerability. And you have to curate an environment that is safe enough for vulnerability. And, as a premarital couple, oftentimes the focus is on dating and fun and adventure. And those are all good things. We need all of that. And it's this balance. We need the dopamine and adrenaline that we get from adventure and risk and fun and excitement. But we need the oxytocin that we get from connection and safety and security and stability. And you need to have conversations that curate that safety so that you can be vulnerable to share those things. And we actually have a tool. It's called Because. And we give that in the course. It's a communication tool that's all about empathizing. Empathizing is one of the number one skills that you need to curate that environment of safety. And if you can use that tool to further curate that environment when you're dating or engaged, then you're going to feel a lot safer to talk about these fears and to be heard and empathized with.
Yeah, so I think that deep down, everyone wants to be loved and known. Those are the two things, loved and known. And I think a lot of dating couples, and by the way, Prequipped is not just for engaged, it's for dating couples too that are seriously dating. Yeah, because we're huge fans. Like, why wait until engagement? Because once we're engaged, we start to feel like, well, we're all in. We have to go through with it. I spent all this money. I got everything to show for it. And so they kind of feel locked in. And
it's a checklist item.
It's a checklist item at that point. It's like, we have to get premarital. But we all want it to be loved and known. And I think a lot of couples, what happens is they begin, if you think of, we call it the dating ladder. It's a concept that we have inside of the kind of helping people with boundaries, because we don't like saying, don't do this. Yeah. That's not, I don't think, the best way of curating the conversation. I like asking questions a little bit better. Yeah. But if you think of a dating ladder, like you have a ladder in the middle that represents like the bottom would be, just talking. And then what would be the next stage of relationship, defining the relationship. What would be the next stage? Talking goes into seriously talking, and then goes into dating, which goes into serious. You have all these stages. Well, on the left side would be feeling loved, right? Oftentimes we're really good at leaning heavily on the loved side of it. So the affection side, I love them, and they get physical, and maybe they're pushing the boundaries there. Yeah. But what happens is they're feeling very loved, but what's rough about all this is they haven't taken time to seriously get to know. Remember that love without knowing is superficial. Yes. Our deepest fear, though, is being known but not loved. Like, they know everything about me, and that's what a lot of people say. I feel like they know we've been together for 8 years, but I don't feel loved. That's what we want to avoid. But feeling loved and known is what we get from God. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the couple's moving fast enough on the love side, but also keeps up with the conversations on the known side. What do you need to know when you are dating? What are the questions that should be being asked? And then what should be being asked when you're seriously dating? What do you need to know there? What are and what you brought up about pornography, that would be a deeper conversation for maybe a little bit longer, farther in, because that's not like, first date. Hey, so by the way, what's your experience with pornography? That might not work there, but it's definitely a big fear. And so you invested, you've gained rapport with this person, you become vulnerable with this person. Then we're at this place that, okay, maybe I can open up and share some of these longings, some of these things that I've struggled with, and they will catch them most likely if you curate that vulnerability, as Karissa was talking about.
That's so good. What about the couple who is, say they even start working through Prequipped, and as they're working through, maybe they are getting to know each other in ways they hadn't before because they maybe hadn't been as intentional. And what if a couple is like, or maybe, the woman, since that's mostly who we're talking to right now, is like, wow, I don't actually, like, starting to have doubts, like, I'm not actually sure this is the best thing. And I kind of romanticized this, and we had a lot of affection, and we felt really close, but wow, like, spiritually, we're not even on the same page, and red flags start to come up, and I know, so many women feel like I just have to go through with it because we've invested so much, like you said. So what should she do or he do if they start to have those red flags and start to have those questions and they're serious? It's not just like, I'm feeling nervous because this is a big commitment, but it's like, wow, these are some serious issues and serious differences.
Yeah, absolutely. So sadly, like, one of our goals, and I say sadly because it's not the bright, cheery, celebratory side of the conversation, but one of our goals is to help couples break up who are not ready to get married or don't share the same values. Like, that's one of our goals. The studies do show that, couples who had premarital counseling, 27% of them actually do break up, and that's considered a success because
that's a good thing.
That contributes to the lower divorce rate.
We had one girl send us a letter in the mail, which is unusual.
Yeah, we get a lot of emails or DMs.
Tons, but it was so sweet of her. She just thanked us for Prequipped. She's like, I want to tell you just how much I'm thankful. I was in this relationship. I had my doubts. We went through it, and we peacefully decided that to separate. And she's like, that was like, I have so much peace now from this. And she's like, this is a God thing. And I was like, that is what we want. Because look, there is somebody out there. The ocean is really big.
Yes.
Don't fixate. It's not your last chance. But God has something, a plan for you. And you have to trust that process. And you are not going to change that other person. You can only change yourself. But if you don't see the willingness for the other person to work on themselves, I'm sorry, the best thing probably would be to pull back from that relationship.
And, you can break an engagement. We probably all know somebody who has. But this is one of the reasons why we actually recommend doing Prequipped or a premarital counseling or program before you're even engaged. So that it's not a checklist item. It's not all the pomp and circumstances on Instagram now, and everyone knows we're engaged, and now we have to delete all the pictures. Like, that is something that you can do, and we recommend that as opposed to just getting married and divorcing several years down the road. But if you can do this before you're even engaged, you save yourself a lot of heartache.
And by the way, too, like, we've created this course to integrate with your mentor or somebody that you love that's around you, so that they can, so there are lots of different sections, but there's a think about it, there's a talk about it, there's a do it. And what happens is we focused on bringing the counselor in, or the trained professional, or even a mentor, to kind of help walk through and ask some of those difficult questions
in the talk about it section, and then do the activities in the do it section. And I think that speaks, Bethany, to your question of like, how do you break things off or start this conversation of, I have reservations? You do that with accountability. That's why you need to have a mentor in your corner. And so if you have somebody walking through a course with you, you're talking with them along the way about these red flags that come
Yeah.
up. We call them the 3 A's. If there's abuse, adultery, or cheating, right, or addiction.
Yeah.
And so if those 3 A's are present, you need to be hitting a hard pause and not moving toward marriage.
Yeah.
So, and we, like you, are a big fan of short engagements.
Yeah.
But this is one of the reasons why we're a big fan of pre-engagement counseling. So have an accountability partner, a mentor to walk through this course with you so that you can have these conversations in the light without it being this manipulative or emotion-driven decision. It's very logic and spiritually driven decision.
And by the way, for all pastors or marriage mentors out there that are listening, if you just shoot us an email at hello@dearyoungmarriedcouple.com, we'll send you a free copy of Pre-Equipped so that you can, become equipped to walk couples through in your church. All that we ask is that the couples themselves invest in the course.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that so much. Y'all are so generous in your heart for just to see couples thrive and to see them, make it the distance is amazing. Dave and I both, we've benefited so much from everything you do. So for the woman who's listening right now and who is saying like, this has been really amazing, but I'm actually already married. What do you have for listeners who are already on the married side? Can you tell us about some of the like awesome resources that y'all have available?
Sure. Yeah. Just kind of in summary, please just connect with our community. We curate a lot of marriage advice from solid married couples all over the world on Instagram. So that's a free resource. The podcast is a free resource. We have lots of free PDFs and downloads. There's a PDF series with videos called When Trust Has Been Broken, 5 Steps When Trust Has Been Broken. So there's that's a free resource.
By the way, I think one of the coolest resources that we do is a live, we call it monthly live date night. I think that's probably the least expensive, coolest thing that we do.
Totally.
Because we have people from all over the world that meet on one Friday a month, and we hit a subject that is important. So could be sex, could be on anxiety, could be on
friendship in the
marriage, dating,
emotional intelligence.
Yeah, we're doing it very soon on emotional intelligence.
Wow.
And if you sign up too, you have access to all the past date nights, so you guys can binge watch if you want. That's your thing.
Yeah. So it's $10 a month.
It's huge. We love it.
That's one of our favorite things to do is the monthly live date.
And then
night.
we have card decks.
Yeah. So
I love your
Bethany
card decks.
mentioned the card decks.
Yes.
Yep. So there's foundations, sexpectations, realizations. They all have a different spin. So you can read about that on the website.
Check them out on Amazon.
We have Having the Talks coming out April 26th. So I don't know when this is airing, but that's for parents and children to have the sex talks, plural, with their kids. And so just lots of good resources that we say it without shame because that's why we built them was for people like you who want to get more equipped.
Well, as we work more and more with couples, we're starting to see, okay, here is a huge need. So here's a huge need. So we've been trying to plug these holes, but why not try to avoid the pain that we are trying to fix? What is it, like a ounce of prevention is I forgot the quote.
Yes.
I'm gonna,
we know what you're saying.
Thank you. Okay.
Is worth more than a pound of intervention.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Stinking quotes.
Y'all, that's amazing. Thank you so much just for taking time. I know y'all are very busy. You have your own family and your whole, everything that y'all are doing, counseling and running Dear Young Married Couple. I know pretty much everything is Dear Young Married Couple. So Instagram is at Dear Young Married Couple. Your podcast is Dear Young Married Couple. So you can literally just Google Dear Young Married Couple and you will find them. And I don't know if other people have trouble, but I hate that I have trouble finding Sexpectations on Amazon, unless I go directly to the page. So y'all, I will link it directly so you can find it. But if you're like, I Googled on Amazon, or whatever, looked on Amazon and I cannot find the Sexpectations, which is very annoying. Just go click the link below or just go on your website to card decks, dearyoungmarriedcouple.com because that really annoys me for y'all. So just know I'm taking
the adult category. So thankfully, a lot of people who are looking for other adult things end up finding this and helping their marriage in a real way.
I was not expecting these questions.
Yes, you can actually look up Dear Young Married Couple Sexpectations on Google, just a Google search, and normally they'll pop up.
Just don't keep scrolling. Just look in the first couple hits because you never know what could pop up.
I wouldn't go to images,
Yeah, don't go to images.
Well, thank y'all so much. Is there any final word you want to leave with our listeners today?
We just encourage you guys to continue to link arms with people like Girl Defined, like your mentors, your pastors. Talk to people who have gone through what you've gone through, and don't be hesitant to ask the hard questions, because that's really what's going to change the dynamics of silence that we see in the church around sex, sexuality, premarital, hard convos. So really link arms and stay connected, stay accountable.
I think that the average number of money spent on a wedding is $36,000.
Something ridiculous.
Wow.
And I could go on and on about all that. I think this is probably the most simple, or one of the most least expensive investments that you can make that have so much real potential to help your marriage. That you could do. Like, this is so important. We'd highly recommend. There's so many couples that come in super nervous, not knowing what to expect, and coming out feeling so much more confident and sure about where they're going in their relationship and their marriage. And that's what we want to help partner with the listeners of the Girl Defined show. We want to help them find that confidence and have those conversations.
Amen. I love that. Thank you all so much for taking the time to be with us. This has been amazing.
Thank you, Bethany.